Quiet on the set. Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody. I'm Dear Myrtle, your friend in genealogy. Welcome to Mondays with Myrt, where we talk about anything and everything that's come across our Genia desk in the last 2 weeks since last we met. Let's see who's out there. Uh, Kathy says, spring has sprung in Minneapolis. That's good. One of those frozen Northland states here. Hillary is saying, um, oh, so you're having a little bit of sun coming through in Wales. I love it, Hillary. Sue Tolbert from Stormy, Oklahoma. Hi, Sue. Hi, Paul. Apparently, you and Kathy are going all over the internet together. And hi, Cynthia, my cousin. Yeah. And here's Jenny from Connecticut. Kathy's here. They're having a lot of fun. Here's Monta. Monta, did you ask old Myrt? Let me know in the chat. A couple of weeks ago, did you ask me about setting up a blog? Um, if there's a if enough people are interested in learning how to do that, I could do that in 2 weeks during Mondays with Myrt. I know that somebody asked, um, but I just can't remember who it was. And I'm thinking of you, I guess, Monta. Hi, Kathy in Northern Cal. Doris from Rock Springs. You know, Doris, that snow extended into the Salt Lake Valley because both of my daughters had snow in there. Just a little more than a dusting. And there we go from Oslo. Hi. Hello, hello. Monta said she didn't think she's not the one that needed to learn to set up a blog. Well, whoever it is, let me know and I will do my best. In about 2 weeks, because we have something planned for next week. So I may as well tell you now. The plan for next week, I'm only going to tell you part of it, is we're going to finally play Who's in My Line, Cousin Russ's game that he invented. And it's really good for learning how to crowdsource with the panelists and the attendees stories that may flesh out an event in an ancestor's life or about the place where they once lived, things along that line. All right. So let's get a going here. I want to share Hillary's link to her blog. She is my lead co-host today. Well, I've got several. Let's put it this way. There we go. Boy, a little bit of a lag, but I think you got it. So, the Gadsby family, and let's bring up the rest of the panelists, and I'll go in and share all of their links to their blogs. Now, not all of the panelists have blogs, but it is a good way to share the story of an ancestor and more than just a fill in the blank kind of a thing. Okay, there's Frank's. Um, hmm. Let me get Ellen's. Boy, these are actually hard for me to copy and paste. Wonder why. Yeah. So let me introduce the panelists. Let's do that. That would be fun. Okay, so I've sent Hillary's link to her blog. Frank, our guy in Germany. Maria, who's keeping me on time today. Leave, and your blog will be visiting very shortly. Randy is here. And Frank, let me ask you um, to go and get each of these links from the private chat to their blogs and send them into the comment area so that people on the YouTube side can have a link to connect and find out more about our various panelists.
I hope I can send some.
Okay, if you cannot, we'll have to ask Hillary to do that. We'll see what happens when you get there. Okay. All right. So let me bring up our panelists for today, our special guests for today. We're going to talk with a gentleman whose name is Rick Voigt, and I'm sure that you have met him before. in previous Mondays with Myrt. Let me pull up the announcement. Are you there? Okay, we've got to. Okay, let's have each of you. Um, can you move them to the wings, Hillary, each of the other panelists, so that it's just me and Rick for a little bit? He and I are going to talk. Now, Rick, is your mic working? Let's see.
Testing
Yay.
1, 2, 3. Hey, Myrt.
Oh, yeah. There you are. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for
So,
having me.
yeah. So, what's going on? Tell me about the 2024 Stevie Award from American Business Awards. Tell me what this is all about.
It was quite an honor, is quite an honor,
Mm-hmm.
and it's from the American Business Association, and it's an award that's broken up, I think, around a dozen different entities around the globe on business awards, and this is the American Award, and it's having to do with people and or entities that are doing something unique and are doing something well. And so this award that we were fortunate enough to win was Maverick of the Year. And so I think it has to do with all of us in the family history world being maverick of helping people tell their family history. And so I'm going to, so that's what the award is. And that second paragraph, go ahead. That's the crux.
Yes, works tirelessly to help older adults reminisce. Now, you're using technology, hardware and software, I noticed at your booth at Roots Tech 2024 in Salt Lake. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So many of you hopefully know us for our restore software. So VividPix, we've
Mhm.
been around for a dozen years, and we've been improving whether underwater photos or old faded photos and documents for over 8 years.
Mhm.
And about 2 years ago, one other point in reference, FlipPal was a business partner of ours
Mhm.
before Gordon retired, and
Mhm.
I like tying solutions together. So the FlipPal was wonderful because it was a great way for folks to be able to scan their images and then use Restore to make them look better. Gordon retired, so then I started to look into what other technology might I want VividPix to be associated with. So we found the scanner, which was Fujitsu, now is Ricoh, ScanSnap SV600 scanner. And what's neat about the scanner is that it top-down scans, so hardware. And sheet feds are wonderful. They can move things quickly, but they have things that are not as good. And then flatbeds are
Slow, 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 and then back, slow, slow, slow. Yeah, that
yep.
scan takes forever. Oh,
Exactly. So,
yeah.
so what this scanner does is it top-down scans, and you can put up to 10 images down at one time. As long as they're separated by greater than 3/4 of an inch, it will automatically crop and straighten and individually create files of each one of those images. And they can be photos, documents, and artifacts, mementos as well.
Mhm.
So we launched that 2 years ago, and then in November of this year, we launched an integrated software, which is allowing us to take over the actual scan twain. So technically speaking, the information that's being captured when something is scanned, we took that over because the SV600 is as great as it is. It limited us to 300 DPI JPEGs and PDFs. But as
Oh,
we but as we speak to the community, we needed TIFF,
yes.
and we need 600 DPI TIFF. So we actually took over the twain. So now we scan everything at 600 DPI TIFF. And then depending on whether in fact the user wishes to have a JPEG output or TIFF and or JPEG output, we've got two different professional and home edition for that.
All right, so let's back up.
Yep.
First of all, JPEG is a lower resolution, um, older format for a graphic image. And TIFF is an archivally safe, according to the standards we now No, it's a file extension, but a type of an image file that doesn't lose its goodness. How's that for a technical term, Rick?
That is the technical term. It's good.
um, over time, if you open it and maybe crop off something, it doesn't destroy the original. TIFFs are the standard, the best. And when
600,
you
exactly. 600 DPI TIFF is the standard for archives, libraries, museums. You nailed it.
yeah, so DPI stands for dots per inch. And so certainly 600 DPI is twice as good as 300 DPI. So we've got the best of both worlds, a better file format and higher resolution, more dots per inch to make that image as sharp and clear as possible. Okay, now back to you.
Wonderful. Thank you for making sure that as I speak techie, everyone can understand, and you're
Yeah.
very helpful. I love you. So now we've captured an image, right? And there is this mass digitization that's going on. People want to be able to scan their photos, their documents, and these things, but they're not thinking about any, they're thinking about, but they're not advancing. How do I use those wonderful memories in order to share the stories behind those memories? And that's what we created with Memory Station. So then Memory Station then captures, it scans that information. You're actually able to import from your local computer or a removable drive or the like. And then you go into the workflow of restore, and all those images automatically go into restore at this high resolution TIFF. So it gives us wonderful information to make them look better, add metadata, lots of different things. And then so you complete the improvement step, and then you're able to record a voice memory.
Which is so exciting because I've noticed in working with our tiny little Gleemus Island, 900 something residents full time, we have a historical society, that if we have 3 or 4 pictures on the table and one of our elderly members comes to a meeting, that if we ask them a question, that's one response. But when we show them a photo, they get all into it. That was a rainy day, which is nothing in the greater Seattle area, but etc. They tell you who's there. They could go on for 15 or 20 minutes on one photo. And that's what you're pairing, not only the overhead, let's scan it, higher resolution, but bringing in that capturing of the memory.
You're absolutely, and that is the magic. And as I travel around a bunch, I'm watching more and more people use the device, and how do they use it? And I've been in the photo business for 39 years, Kodak, HP, and VividPix for the last 12. And if you think about how we used to take pictures, well, for those of us who remember film, we used to burn 6.7 rolls of film per year. And with that, we would burn, say, a full roll at Thanksgiving, a full roll at Christmas or the holiday season, special occasions and events, and we'd burn 4 or 5 rolls of film pretty completely. And then we would burn 1 to 3 rolls of film kind of interspersed, and we'd leave a roll of film in the camera. And for special pictures, we might take 2, because we wanted to make sure that we captured the picture. And by the way, if I'm swaying, yes, the person in Denver is saying that we've got a little bit of wind going on. I'm currently in Colorado Springs, and it's windy here.
And you're in your well, it's a motor home of sorts. Is it more of a van or a motor home?
Yeah, it's considered a Class B RV. It's a Sprinter van, which I like calling it a van.
Okay.
I'm from a time that I
Better on the
remember.
mileage, isn't it?
I was getting 17, 18 miles per gallon so far this trip. It's wonderful.
That's good.
So anyways, so thinking about those old photos is that think about how you took them. And it might be that you took 3 or 4 at someone's birthday, or 3 or 4 at a soccer game, or fill in
Mm-hmm.
the blank.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the wonderful memories that really describe who we are and or who that other person is. Or if we go ahead.
Well, and I wanted to say, I wish that we had this kind of technology to capture my dad talking about how he felt when my daughter did something and she was like 3 or 4 years old, because what that would tell my daughter Tammy about how much her grandpa Glenn loved her. And that we miss if it's just a photo. Sometimes we're surprised what's on that roll of film that year, isn't it?
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
And so I'll give you an example with my daughter and my wife. So I did one, and I continue to learn the power of this tool because other people are coming up with different ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So I happen to have scanned some photos of me my freshman year in college. And 4 or 5 of them were of my wife and I when we first met, and 4 or 5 of them were in the Colorado mountains.
Mm-hmm.
And in a spring break. So I told the story of my wife and my meeting with about 5 images.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and my daughter, who's 33 years old, is a neighbor of yours, as you know. She's in Seattle.
Yeah.
But yeah, but what's neat about it was her response, which was, I have heard the story of my parents' meeting my whole life, but I've never seen the pictures. And now she was able to see how it all came together. What did I look like when I was 18? What did my wife look like when she was, a couple of years older than me?
Mm-hmm.
What did we do when we were crazy kids? And now all of a sudden we have a different connection. So she shared that post and she said, um, um, classic story. Boy hits on girl in college class, and I'm the result, or something like that.
I
Yeah,
love it.
right.
Yes. This kind of thing is what I'm into more now than actual researching of ancestors. I've hit a couple of dead ends, like they are not brick walls. I just realized that if I don't concentrate on sharing what I've already compiled and figure out ways to share them creatively so that my kids and grandkids are interested in it. Right now, I'm doing a series, and it's mostly from, we mostly do it via text because that's what they're using right now. And I'm going where they're going for
Yeah.
communicating. Right now, um, girlfriends and wives of my grandchildren are getting a kick out of pictures of these grandchildren when they were 2 or 3 years old. And I can tell the story of when they got lost in the woods. It wasn't even a 100-acre wood. It was like less than a half an acre, and they got lost. But old Greta, old girl, dad's hunting dog, heard their cries and pulled them out, kept nudging them along. And yeah, Ellen has a good comment. Let's bring in some comments from the group. Ellen, one of our panelists, says, tell your own story. And ooh, and you're really lucky that your dad recorded his family stories. I love that. And Valerie, hi Valerie, is saying, this is exactly why I'm writing and compiling my mom's story from 1911 to 2009 with photos and documents to pass on to her son. And so many things would be lost if we don't tell the whole story. Yes, I get it. You're absolutely right, Valerie. Um, Thanks to Sherry for being our hostess with the mostest on the YouTube side. She wants to know, for other scanners. Well, actually, I'm not quite sure what you mean by that question. Are you limited to the scanner's resolution options? Yeah, you're the
Well,
software that
so
comes with
yes,
the.
So yes and no, sure. It's actually a very interesting question.
Oh, good.
So the SV6, yeah. So the SV600 is limited to a 300 DPI JPEG and PDF. By us actually getting inside of the Twain, there's enough optic information for
Mhm.
us to be able to capture a 600 DPI TIFF. So the answer there
Oh,
is no, we were not limited. That said, flip it in a little bit of different direction. Confidentially, you've heard it here first at Myrt's. Is that we're going to be implementing something called Select Scanner. So Select Scanner allows you to be able to look at the various scanners that you have connected to your computer and
Mhm.
actually use that scanner directly into Memory Station software and pull it up, should
Mm.
be at 600 DPI TIFF, depending on its capability. And that's we're right now, it's live in the software, and we're going through our final evaluation of lots
Oh,
of
do you
different
need a beta
scanner.
tester? Do you need a
You
beta tester?
you bet, I'd love to. No one better.
I appreciate that. Yeah, that excuse me, Sherry, for not understanding your question. And Rick, you are so good for pointing out exactly people could buy your whole system for their society, for the local take it to a nursing home, etc. Use it that way. But individuals like me who already have an overhead scanner need to break out of the skin that's covering the DPI and the file type. And so I need the memory station software very specifically. One of the things,
I
let me
know
go,
somebody who can help you with that.
yeah, okay. Let me go back and share my screen for a second here. Um, so one thing I have to tell you about using these kind of overhead scanners. I mean, I'm never putting an old timey photo through a sheet feed scanner. That just, uh, somebody was demonstrating that at Roots Tech, and I about died. My photos are pretty precious. That's all I can tell you. And I don't want a single crease or crack to be added to what is already an almost disappearing ancestral portrait. But we talked about how fast these kinds of overhead scanners work. You literally click and it's done. And let me reiterate something that you said. Tell me about the 3/4 of an inch, because we've had a few new people come in that missed that part of your presentation. You've got multiple items there ready to be scanned in this photo.
Yep. So
Uh,
there are
Um,
five of them. There are five of them right now. The
mhm.
scanner can actually, its spec is 10. I've done 11 and 12 because you
Yeah.
have to press the boundary, and it does do it, but the spec is 10. So as long as those images are separated by 3/4 of an inch or greater, it will
Yes.
separate each one of those images into individual files and straighten them.
Wow. So gone are the days, folks, where we need to put multiple photos on the scanner, and then after it scans the whole thing, go in and crop each one, etc. What a mess. In fact, I've got some I haven't even done that to. Haven't even cropped them out and made them their own individual photo. The problem was if they were scanned in JPEG mode, what's happened? There's it's losing its um, what do you call the sharpness? It loses its definition because you're modifying the original photo. Okay, um,
Let
how
me
do
let me make
go?
one point on that
Yeah,
on the photo albums as an example, because that's
yes,
a perfect example that the magnetic sheets that all of us hate, wish we never heard of them before, but boy, weren't they convenient.
hmm,
Is that those are 2 wide 6 by 3 tall 4, because they're 4 by 6 prints, or they're
yes,
4.5 by 3.5 if they were 110, or
yeah,
126 is 3.5 by 3.5, blah blah blah. But if you have them in a single sheet,
yes,
you'll want to scan it as many times as you have pictures. So then what you're able
Oh,
So then what you're able to do is within Restore, then you simply drag, release, crop, fix. Next image comes up, click, drag, release, crop, fix. And that way you can do all those
yes.
individual images.
I would not, I should have known you back in the day because that's brilliant. Totally brilliant. Yeah. I lost your comment. Here it is. Frank, come up on the panel here. Let's get you up here. You have a question about putting glass on top of the photos. Something on top of
Yeah.
it. So speak to me about that. Or to Rick, actually.
In in the picture of the station, it always shows like you put a glass on it to have the pictures fixed, and that tricks me a little bit off, because when you put a book on it, obviously it wobbles and causes glare and so on.
Yep. So this was a really super find. It's actually museum grade acrylic. And we call it the image stabilizer. So because it's museum grade acrylic, it does not reflect. Glass does, plastic does. And if you think about artwork in a gallery, it has lights pointing at those pictures, but because it's glare resistant, it doesn't reflect. And that's what we're utilizing, is very expensive, high grade acrylic.
Cool.
So that's something that I don't have with my overhead scanner. But I will tell you, Frank, that when I've been to the National Archives and I've been to its field branches at Sandpoint in Seattle, in Georgia, I've been to many state archives. They have that glare-free glass to put on top. And that helps with a land entry file that was folded up, or a carded medical record of my Union Civil War ancestor. When I unfolded that legal document, there were at least 3 or 4 folds that meant it was like a mountain. And putting that on top helps. The thing I do have for paper like that are these special weighted pads. It's like they almost feel like a beanbag kind of, but they're archival quality. And if I put it in the corners of the paper and flatten it carefully, that keeps things steady with the existing setup that I have. But you're lucky if you can get this setup that Rick and his team have put together. Very good. All right. Do we have any other questions? Let's see.
I see one here from Randy.
Yeah.
Can it
Okay.
scan an image of a handwritten page and transcribe it using AI? So first step there
Yes.
is it able to scan documents, i.e. text, as well as handwritten? And of course it
Mhm.
can too. With Restore software, we have an algorithm um, just for documents. And of course, that's embedded within Memory Station software 3. What we have found is that Restore will 2x the improvement. It will 2x the OCR capability of whatever OCR you are using, because we've made
Optical character recognition. Yes.
Thank you. Yep. We'll 2x the quality of that handwritten or text information. The next piece of your question then is, are we currently having handwriting image and transcription? Not yet.
And so I can tell you right now, Randy, I'm taking that course from Miss Leeds of the Leeds method. And AI interpretation of handwriting is changing so fast from week to week. We're noticing differences. The fact that you can get a very clear image is step one. And then I don't expect You might, but I don't expect Rick's company to suddenly become an expert when Gemini and ChatGPT 4 and et cetera, are working feverishly, each in their own realm, to interpret handwriting. We're up onto week 3 finally of our course. And some of the things that we did, handwriting to text interpretation, and I can't say we were using Chat GPT 3.5. 4 was an improvement. Gemini's a major improvement. It's just evolving that quickly that I'm glad you're spending your energy improving the capturing of the image itself. Go ahead, Rick.
You're 1,000% right. We could never replace the billions of dollars that is being spent on artificial intelligence, generative AI. Name it by whatever brand you call it. But looking across the different products that are then able to be integrated into what we do, absolutely.
Get it. Okay, Randy, you had another question for Rick.
Yeah, like most of us with the magnetic pages and things,
Mm.
I have photos that have 8 to 10 photos jammed against each other. Do I have to take it apart?
So they are side by side, not stacked.
Yeah.
Okay, side by side. Yep. And so that's a perfect example of you're being able to scan that image multiple times. And then so what happens if you get one? So if you scan it once and you got everything together, and then you've got a digitized copy of 8 images, you haven't told a story. 2, you're able to scan that 8 or 10 times and or 5 times, because maybe 3 or 4 of them aren't something worthwhile. And that way you can crop within our restore software based, which is in Memory Station. Then you're able to crop that image, fix that image, and then it goes into your queue. You're then able to record the story that goes with those 4 or 5 or 8 to 10. And then the last step of stories within Memory Station is that each of those images that you have now scanned and improved and added a voice recording are streamed together into an MP4 in order to be able to tell the story of whatever you choose to tell the story of.
Okay, so MP4
Yep.
is a video file format.
Is a video file format. It is the most standard movie file. And along those lines, subtext to this is that VividPix doesn't sell things by subscription. We sell a product, we sell a software license, and we don't ask you to pay for that every month. So we give free updates based on the product that you purchased. We continue to add different functionalities, and now you're able to continue to do more and more things.
Rick, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Remember that I said I have some of those scans that I did, or images that I took when I was visiting my, she was my Grandma Myrtle's sister's daughter. Yeah, I guess I don't need to give you the whole lineage. That's not germane to the question. You know how genealogists are. Anyway, I've got that image with multiple photos in it. At this point, I can't go back. She's passed away. And I guess I could go see my cousin a couple hours away, but could I just make copies of that and then go into each one individually? This is image 1, crop that first one. The second, which is the first copy, go to the second photo. Would that preserve those horrible JPEGs and not give them that lossless diminishing of sharpness?
2-part answer. First part is an easier workflow might be to simply copy that first image.
Yes.
And then if you keep pasting it, it's going to just add a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So at that point, you don't need to rename. 2, then you're able to bring those into Restore Memory Station and go through the exact same steps.
Okay.
Yep, it'd be a lot faster in workflow.
Okay. So So it's probably good that I didn't get around to cropping them all into their individual photos. All right. Any more questions that I haven't answered from the community? All kinds of people are saying things like, um, this, they're also at the same stage I'm at where they want to do more of this sharing and pulling together the story of an ancestor and of an event that an ancestor experienced. Yeah, so this is right on target, the products we need to get our job done. Oh, Frank did have one question. I think I know the answer, but I'm giving it to you. Can you see it at the bottom of the screen?
Yes. Can it do multiple scans in one go? And the answer is yes. Up to 10 at one time.
Wow. Okay, again, boy, am I glad I had you here to answer all these questions. I would have never guessed. All right, folks. So this is the link. I'll put it up here in the chat and send it out over to the YouTube side. This is Vivid Pics. Let me share my screen again. And remember, scan, restore if necessary. Now, restore is a different product. That's
But it
yes.
can be, yeah, it can be purchased separately, but it's also embedded within Memory Station.
Really? Okay.
Really.
And then share. So the memory station itself is a bundle that you can buy. And believe me, these overhead scanners are not cheap, but they are extremely versatile. Just the part to have it scan once and make individual photos of whatever it is you have on the screen is incredible. Extended warranty, and what is this image stabilizer? Talk to me
Yep.
about that. Oh, that's the glass that
Exactly.
I'm missing.
Yep. That's the museum grade acrylic. Yep.
Okay, all right. So, and then please let me know when the memory station software is available so that I can get that.
So if you
Okay.
scroll near the bottom,
Well, I can keep going down.
yep. So we've got bundles for home, for professionals, for communities. And if you keep scrolling down,
Okay, I'm about halfway there.
yep.
All right.
And the
Tell me to
next,
stop.
yep, keep going.
Oh,
Sold
sold
individually.
individually.
Yep. So at that point, so the home edition is available right now for $200, and that
Okay.
includes restore. But I would love to have you as a tester. And then our professional edition is a 5-year license, and that has additional capabilities currently, and
Mm.
the professionals will like the things that are coming.
You know, I think that this comment from our friend Valerie sums up how we're feeling about this. Thank you for making our lives so much easier in doing this with our photos and stories and getting them integrated. Thank you, Rick, for being with us today.
Thank you, Valerie.
Vivid-pics.com. Yeah, go ahead. You can
Yep.
have the
Thanks.
last word.
Well, thanks, Myrt and Valerie. You're welcome. It does my heart such good in order to be able to know that we're helping. So thank you.
That's way cool. See, folks, it's so fun to be able to talk to people and figure out what the heck they're doing. Um, there's this is a wonderful option for us. So, if you, Rick, let me just ask you this, and we'll pull you back up here. If you want the memory station, go talk to him over there. But Rick, be aware that oh, this is Karen C, isn't it? I think it is. She has
So the
different names.
so the question here is that as we provide products, and we don't charge for new updates, and we come out with that. Memory Station software is a new product that embeds restore, so it's a separate product. It's $199.
Yeah, okay. That's good. All right. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate that. All right. So now I want to switch gears and I want to talk to you about an kind of an ethical question. So let's bring the panelists up on this up. If you would do that, please, Hillary. Thank you. Hillary is in charge of getting panelists up here. So here's the question. I read a post a couple of weeks ago that disturbed me. And it was posted by a speaker who was doing an all-day seminar for a genealogy society. And Jill's already shaking her head yes. And so she had given her first presentation, and she's now ready to, there's a little break time. But the society then, this was a Zoom meeting, the host of the society put up a poll asking the audience to evaluate the presenter and that first presentation. Right there, as the presenter is now getting ready to do the second of 4 presentations for the day. I about fell off my chair. I guess I prejudiced your responses, but unmute yourselves and raise your hand, and I'll call on you in turn. How do you feel about that, guys? Jill, I'll take you first, and then Hillary.
Well, I've never had that happen to me.
Oh.
So I can tell you that. I would be shocked if that happened to me. I agree with that speaker. Do I consider it an ethical problem? No, I consider it one of manners. That it's that would be far. I mean, I just can't believe that they had the chutzpah to do that. So it just seemed to me that it wasn't ethics so much. They're allowed to evaluate, and I realize that a poll is very easy to build in Zoom, but it's far better to do it in like Google Forms and then send it out to all the attendees and get that information privately and then be able to feed that back to the speaker. Because sometimes speakers do have, irritating things happen, like a fan rotating in the background irritates the crap out of me. Or a light that is so bright from behind them that all you can see is the silhouette. So all I can say is that I don't really consider it an ethical issue, dear Myrt. I do consider it a one of manners, that wouldn't be advisable.
Okay. Hillary?
Yeah, I totally agree. You cannot ask people to evaluate somebody when they are there. You need to do it as a private thing. You don't do it when it's not good for the. It's not without telling, because we're not without telling somebody that you're going to do it. Definitely not.
Yeah. Frank?
Especially when the speaker is right in charge of the next talk, and you push feedback into his face, you make them nervous as fuck. So
Yeah.
don't do that. It's really bad for the speaker.
All right. Anybody else want to chip in before I give my opinions? Ellen?
I couldn't imagine if you got negative feedback being able to just go on doing a next section.
Yeah. All right. This is what the community's saying. No way should a poll be done for an evaluation. That's a Zoom poll. As a moderator for the Minnesota Genealogical Society's monthly webinars, she would send out a post-webinar survey. Now, I want to bring up a point that you made, Jill, and that is a fan rotating or lighting. That is all to be taken care of by people like Valerie, who are the Zoom host, who act in that's what the green room's all about. Mic check and video check.
But sometimes it's the attendees, or they may get up, or they may reach for something that's way up here and all you get is a pitch up. So I think there's
So
some
the
things that
host,
the monitor can do, but I
yeah,
think that there's some things that can't be done. So somewhat that's a criticism of the attendees as well as the speaker itself.
okay, that is still, if somebody, when a presenter is presenting in a Zoom meeting where there's all the little chiclets like this, that host has the ability to turn off the webcam and mute people. And the dread, an armpit's nothing compared to the lady at Grip who received her Amazon mail, and it was a new pair of pants, and she stood up, took off her other pants, and pulled these up to see if they fit. And that is totally the responsibility of, first, of the person, and secondly, of the host. That Zoom host has absolute power, and so does the co-host. Believe me, Cousin Russ and I, yeah, that's a whole nother lifetime ago. It's amazing what people do. The other thing that I recommend is that all of the attendees in a Zoom meeting, which is the least expensive kind of Zoom product to have a meeting as opposed to Zoom webinar, where you have panelists and everybody else is not seen unless they've been activated by those. I recommend that during a presentation, everybody turns off their webcam and their mic. That is an absolute necessity because we blow our nose, we take a drink, and now I'm advertising a certain water bottle company, etc. We don't need that. People have left their mic on and had an argument with their spouse, and it continues. And for a host or co-host to let that go forward is upsetting. Now, is there anybody else on the panel that wants to comment? Maria, did you?
Just most Zoom meetings and go to webinars, when you're in your privacy of your own home, they will send out an evaluation form, so to speak. If you'd like to have the speaker back, was the topic, to your liking? Do you have any suggestions? That kind of stuff, in my opinion, that's the way it should be done. Even if it was in person, they should have gotten an email sent to them. I just think that puts the speaker in a bad position. Like was mentioned earlier, what if it was bad? How could you go on to do your next lecture? You'd be shaken up. I would be. I mean, so.
Yeah. All right. So here's what I think. As a speaker, I want feedback. I want critique. I love suggestions from people. I do a lot. I know that. What can I tell you? But not during the event. Now, when it's an in-person meeting, like they've done at Roots Tech, where there's a piece of paper, they used to do that. Now they do it all electronically. It's actually better for your society to do it electronically. And just because we can within Zoom have a poll doesn't mean we use it in this manner. Here's what Mr. Myrt says as a conference chair for a number of years, I think 12 years for the Fairfax Genealogical Society in Fairfax, Virginia. He discounts the top one or two feedbacks that are positive and the bottom one or two feedbacks that are positive. And in the middle is the valuable feedback that is generally most on point. People that are ravingly happy, excited about your presentation. Okay. And there's always going to be a grouch or two. But we do need that feedback. It takes a lot to get up and do an all-day seminar. It's exhausting, especially since new stuff happens all the time. The first time I took Mr. Myrt with me to do where I did an all-day presentation, it was up in Anchorage, Alaska, and we flew up there, and I immediately unpacked my computer and hooked it up to the big TV they had so I could see. Because new things happen as you're flying to Alaska, etc. I can remember the year that the National Archives website changed over Christmas break. And SLIG, Salt Lake Institute of Genealogy, and I was VP of Utah Genealogical at the time, so I was privy to this. There are a number of presenters during that SLIG week that came up starting the 3rd of January that year. These presenters had to quickly scramble. First, some of them didn't know about it yet. And this was an in-person, so they were traveling on maybe January 2nd to get to Salt Lake. Yeah, they needed to update their slides. Unless you have sat next to another presenter, folks, and seen what they do the night before, it isn't because they are not prepared. It's because they are hyper vigilant about having the most up-to-date information possible. They want to be as accurate as possible. And even if we've given a presentation 6 times before, we customize it at home because now we're in Alaska, we're not in Virginia. And so we try to find examples that have to do with Alaska, or, what's at that National Archives field branch. Did they do away with the one in Alaska? I think they did, and it's consolidated now with Seattle, isn't it?
Most of it, yeah. Some of it went to the University of Alaska.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they split
see what you don't know? Yeah. See what you don't know? I got to go in the vault there, but anyway, I digress. All right. Somebody said somewhere, and it scrolled by in the comments, that you couldn't, something to the effect of, you couldn't pay me to go give a presentation to that society. The speaker was discreet and did not mention the society in question, although some of us begged privately. Let's love our speakers. We go through a lot of effort. Some of our presentations, it isn't just the PowerPoint or whatever that takes time to create. It's years of preparation, of knowing what's available, and knowing what to expect in a record set, and what's an unusual document in that record set versus, no, most of them, they don't have that document. Knowing oddities about it, and that's what they're paying for, that knowledge that we have about a particular subject. All right, enough pontificating from old Myrt. Let me go on to the next topic. We're going to switch gears.
Well, I do think that Ursula has a good question about what do you do if that happens to you?
Can't do anything. You just carry on like a professional.
Well, you can ask him not to do it for the next 3.
Well, okay.
Or not. I mean, if you have an immediate communication with the lead person, it'd be possible
privately.
You can do that.
Yeah, privately.
Privately. Yeah. Okay. Not on a public chat. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's have everyone to the wings except for Leave. And I'm going to share my screen so that we can talk with her for a little bit. Okay, Leave.
Yes, hi.
On a much lighter note.
That's really switching gears.
I know. Well, sometimes it's an abrupt switch sometimes, but what can I tell you?
Yes.
Okay, so I've got your blog post, and I want to draw this distinction here. Let me also zoom in a little bit more. Talk to me about what's going on in this particular post.
I wanted to say something about the Norwegian farm, since a lot of people lived on the farm in previous time. It was 87% of Norwegians lived on the farm in 1872. So those who do genealogy, they need to have some information about the farm. And I republished my Facebook blog post to a lot of Norwegian American Facebook pages, and 1,000 people have read, or rather have started to read this blog post. So it was of great interest. And I got a lot of comments where they commented on what kind of a farm their ancestors were from, where they came from. And some people even found cousins by answering this blog post.
Well, and it really, a farm name, we've learned from you, Liv, becomes not the last name, but
more like
people
an address.
Yes, exactly, like an appendage to the actual name. And people say, why is the last name changing? It's not the name that changes. They're on a different farm. So they're saying Ole Svensson of Surnadal versus Ole Svensson of Oslo, or a place, a farm name, I'm not a city name. But it amounts to that. But what's the difference between a farm and a garden?
It's a double A. The A with a ring about it is a double A.
Yes.
And it's Gården, but it's also called Garn. And it's the Norwegian name for farm.
So this is important, isn't it? And why I love having an international group joining us on Mondays with Myrt. Because if I just saw the GARDEN, and I know that various languages put things above umlauts and stuff like that, above letters, but I don't know Norwegian. I have you.
So ask me.
But I would have thought, okay, the guy had a little garden outside the, in the back, like the most, in my mind, it would be like a small vegetable garden during World War I or World War II, where everybody did that. They made little vegetable gardens where their lawn used to be. And that was it, not a big farm where that was their principal source of income. So a GAARDEN, or with that little notation, means farm in Norwegian. So cool. So talk to me some more about this post.
As we go further down, I describe the ownership of the farm. And you see bonde, that's a farmer. That's an independent farmer and landowner. While the three other categories, they don't own their farm. They rent it in some way or other.
Yes. Tell me about what does kator mean? Is that the term smallholder?
Yeah.
In Norwegian? Okay.
But the difficulty in writing about Norwegian genealogy in English is that the terms that you use are not exactly the same as the terms we use. So both the word smallholder and kator, it's not a perfect translation, but it's the best that can be done.
So, and that's distinct from people who are renting and also live on the land?
Yeah, it is. And it's kind of a derogatory term, being a husmann. So my grandmother, she was born in 1889, and she was the daughter of a husmann. And her brother, he's written, or there's been written oral history about him. And he tells some things that happened to him as a child, because he was a son of a husmann. So he had, in Norway, we say, you sit down on the table, on the furthest away from the main person at the table.
Yeah, the whole hierarchy, the social class.
Yes.
It's very, very distinct. We see this in England and Wales and a whole hierarchy of that. And tenant farmers, you basically got them in descending order. This is the top dog.
Yeah, but
And we go from there.
Sometimes a husman, he could have a bigger farm than a farmer, the one on the top. So
Really?
it's not absolutely strict.
Okay. But he can't rent out any part of this Husman cannot, he can't rent out to anyone else. He can't like say, you can do these 2 acres and pay me so much per year.
Yeah.
He can't do that.
Yeah. And then I continued to describe what kind of houses there exists on a farm. A large farm would have a house for every function. So I know a farm in not far from Oslo, they had 17 houses.
Oh my gosh!
Or buildings around on the farm, while I bet it was 2 on the farm, the Husmannsplass that my grandmother was from. I think they had a small cabin, which was the living area, and then they had a storehouse, a stabbur. A place where they kept the food.
In 1995, when I went to Sweden as part of a Baltic Sea cruise, we went to like a restored sample village where they pulled buildings, different kinds of farm buildings, and arranged them, and a 1-room home. And the animals stayed underneath, but you could hardly fit more than a cow and a couple of pigs or something underneath. But they put them underneath because the heat would rise and help warm the home. But there were other buildings, woodshed. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
What would we typically find in a barn? That would be a separate building for animals, maybe on a larger type farm.
I think a horse would be in the barn, while the cow shed, the cows would be. But a barn and a fjøs could be the same building.
Okay.
If you had a small farm, you couldn't. You did not have the economy to build 2 buildings.
Right. It takes up space that you could be gardening on. I'm using that term as a farm term.
Yeah, but you remember the house in Surnadal?
Yes.
Which was where Gordon's ancestors came from. You could move the house because it was a lot of logs, and you moved them a kilometer away. And
I couldn't believe that. That's like a lot of work to move a log cabin. It wasn't that big though, so.
But they planned ahead. Fantastic how they planned ahead. They did something one year, and some more the next year, and even more the year after. And perhaps 5 or 10 years later, they had the house put up.
Amazing. So to me, I know aside from the fact that wood is kept in the woodshed to keep it dry so that it can burn efficiently and not spit all over. Is a woodshed where my great-grandfather, he would be sent there by his father as a disciplinary measure and to meet with to be there when his father would come with a switch to discipline him? Is that something they did in Norway?
I think it's universal.
Okay.
There's a children's author in Sweden, and she's written about a guy called Emil, and he sat in the shed and made small figurines because his father was angry with him, so he locked himself in instead of his father locked him
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, to protect. I hear. So I've heard of a cabin in the mountains and then the land on the farm. Why would it be divided into two areas?
Because the Inmark is the main area, the area around the farmhouses where they had potatoes and rye and other crops.
Yeah.
While in the Utmark, that would be land that was not possible to cultivate.
Okay.
But
you could you graze animals on that property?
Yeah.
So it was left to the wild as opposed to cultivating, to sow seed of hay or anything like that. Possibly.
Yeah. A few years back, I helped because they had they picked stones from the yard and put up fences of stone.
Oh, yeah.
And then they drove the cows through these fences because it was a fence on two sides. So we tried to make it good again. And then the animals would go out more into the wild. And graze there during the day. And in the evening, they would kind of sing a song to get the animals to come back. And the cows would be milked. And the wives of the farmers, they would have different ways of singing.
And why would they have different ways of singing? To know
that the animals should recognize that she was singing to them.
Time to come home, guys.
Yeah.
Yep. I hear that. Okay.
Then we have the word makeskifte. The word that this blog post started with. There was a guy, I think his name was Johnson, but I can't remember his first name. He wanted to know what the makeskifte is. And that is to exchange parts of land or a whole farm.
Okay. So it was exchange for land or money for land?
Mostly land for land.
Okay, got it.
But it could be a whole farm. I want to live there, and so you can have my farm if I get yours.
Yeah.
And perhaps some money in between.
Yeah, I want this part because my cattle tend to go there, but I'll trade you this other part of prime property for you to have of mine so that we're no longer having a problem with our cattle. Okay, I'm going to bring Jill up onto the panel because she has a couple of questions, and also Ursula has some comments, and they've been typing them in the private chat. Let me switch my camera view here. So Jill, you had something about you have a couple of questions. So talk with Weave and I'll get out of the middle of it.
Well, I get going with my little chats, so I do end up with some multiple questions. So Liv, you know that I have Norwegian ancestors way back, and so I run out of census records and everything else when I get way back there. So I'm not really, I'm not in a position where they were anything other than farmhands that helped the farmer out. But I was wondering if there was a way to determine who was the real owner of the property versus who is the tenant farmer of the property. Is there a way to figure that out?
Perhaps from the church books where they are given a title.
Good point.
The female, if they were unmarried, she would be a pike, a girl.
Right.
It might give some indication that she was a kind of a farmhand.
So Frank wants to know if there are things like land records up there.
Yes.
I mean, we could see that in English. I have people that they weren't the people that lived in the manor house, but the manor house of what kept books on the tenant farmers and whether or not that tenant farmers, they had multiple tenant farmers, and if this tenant farmer's land could be inherited by his son or not. And these, you couldn't get married without going, those manorial records are very valuable to find out what's going on. But do they have things like that in Norway?
I just lost your question, but I would like to answer.
Okay, go ahead.
If you have the next generation, you could get some information from that, because the oldest child would inherit the land. That is the term I use here, odel. So you could presume that the second, third, and fourth child, they would not inherit the farm, and then they had to go work on another farm.
Mm-hmm. Right. So could a female inherit if she was the oldest child?
Yeah.
Yeah, she could.
That's pretty progressive. Very progressive.
And my great-grandmother, she inherited the farm from her father. She was the only child in the marriage. And because of that, the given names, they are, then the woman is preferred before the mother is preferred, for mother's family is preferred before the father's family in giving the name. So you might see something there. Sorry, Myrt, I was so occupied by saying this, I didn't hear your question.
Well, I'm back in the 1700s, so I'm not too worried. And then she immigrated almost immediately to Denmark, so it's kind of outside the question. But nevertheless, one thing, just an observation, is that certainly in Sweden, where I do most of my work, but some in Norway as well, is that there's so many terms for different kinds of farmers, like Myrt was mentioning. Is that and related to their caste, where they were in the church usually, and such, or what rights they had to graze in the open areas. But here in the U.S., it's farmer or tenant farmer, and that's about it. So it's interesting that there are so many classifications.
Yeah, Ursula, you had mentioned somewhere in our private chat, that's why I brought you up, that some of these same principles applied in Germany. Could you speak about that for a moment, and we'll go from there?
Yeah, it's mainly northern Germany where we have these big estates. So there we have tenants, but we also have the different kind of workers. So in that case, but in other areas where we don't have the big estates, just normal, regular farming, even then we have a certain class, like one Hufe. Hufe is hectare or size
acre,
of
like a size or an acre.
One hufna or full hufna, so you have an entire hoof, or you only have half of it, and depending on that, it mainly says it's your status, and it means you're somewhat dependent.
We have the same.
Make a living on it, for example, if you're only like half, if you only earn or live on half of the farm, so to say, you probably won't be able to make a living from that. So you need to have another occupation. So either you're a day laborer, or you are a craftsman and earn a little extra. But it's exactly as Liv says. It's the same. It's the same in Germany. You have to see who inherits and these things. So and then in Germany we don't have Germany as a country, but we have so many small states, and everyone and areas, and every area has their own way of doing things and naming things. So in Germany, you really have to look where exactly you're doing research. But it's a lot like in Norway.
So we have the term halvgård, like you said, the half farm. And in Norway, it's also the same way that they often had other things that did other than farming. They would be cobblers, blacksmiths. If they lived by the sea, they would be more of a fisherman than a farmer. They would only have a small farm, and the woman would tend to the farm. And it's a term for that, strandsitter. So the words count. The words give a lot of information.
Well, thank you very much for explaining some of these terms. And this is part of why those of you who do have Norwegian ancestry should follow along with Liv's blog and catch the various posts. Thank you for this, because we've been wanting to talk about this for a while now, a couple of weeks. Very interesting. Thank you very much. I think we're about ready for the lightning round. Now we're running out of time. That's just what happens when we have such great things to talk about. Thank you, Liv. And thank you for the feedback from Jill and Frank and Ursula. It's a matter of we just got to learn what's going on in the world and in the neck of the woods where your ancestors once lived. Okay, so let's get ready. I'm going to share this link. I totally love this request from our friend Jill Ball in Australia. She has a plea to presenters to please offer an alternative to hard copies. This is what happens. We have too many items. Yeah, let me send this out to the group. I hope that you are finding that presenters are doing two things. They're required to give you the 4 pages of handouts. That's the normal phrase, or the normal page numbers that are required for a 1-hour presentation, including 15 minutes of a discussion. But if that presenter is smart, they'll put a link to the handout over in Google Drive, and then there will be not an errata, that's a correction, but an addendum after those 4 pages, where topics and links that are mentioned that come up during the presentation and during the Q&A can be placed, so that the latest, greatest information will be in that shared document, publicly available document on Google Drive. Okay, and then next, I want to talk about our friend Kenneth Marks. He is a newspaper nut, and we love it. And he spent some time going through the new layout at the Library of Congress's Chronicling America. These are historic newspapers, and he talks about how to use the filtering. He says that's pretty fantastic, etc. And there are, when it comes to handling the images, let me zoom in a little more. There are some new features, and as you scroll through this post, did I send this one out? Let me send it out to y'all. And all these links that we're sharing will be still in the commentary and in the live chat, which I am still preserving, because I know I've got Sherry on the other side to cull any unkind intrusions we may have. Anyway, so it's always helpful when somebody talks about an update to a website, a different way to use it, the kinds of things that you can encounter when you're using that particular search engine on one website. It's not always the same. And here's the link actually to Chronicling America. 24 million pages, I think they have. What is it? Yeah. 24 and a half million pages. That's pretty amazing. And I'm very excited to hear about it. So thanks to Kenneth for that. And here's the next thing. Now, Genealogical Publishing Company is doing a different thing. Normally let me get all this for the title, and I'll put this in, by Roberta Estes. Normally, when they decide to publish a book, we clamor for having it in ebook format. But this time, Genealogical Publishing decided to publish the ebook first, and then right now that's still all that's available. They're anticipating getting the paperback copy available to us in May, which we are in. So we'll see what happens. This is a pretty good write-up about what you can expect, what's covered, about sequencing, Y-DNA, mtDNA, autosomal family finder tests. And we're talking specifically about Roberta's new book, A Complete Guide to Family Tree DNA. So keep that thing in mind. Another thing, wow, I think I went too far. I don't have it. Let me get the link. I have a link. Krista Cowan's being kind of interesting. She has a new podcast. And Facebook has been giving me fits, but it just worked. Didn't work earlier. Stories that live in us. Can you tell she loves her job? I think so. This is an independent of Ancestry podcast. I want to know how many of you, let me know in the chat, if you listen routinely to podcasts like the Genealogy guys, etc. I agree with Ellen. Krista is a busy lady. Yeah, she just dropped 5 episodes, and let's get to the link of it. Stories that live in us.com. All right. So, how do podcasts work? Hillary, you listen to podcasts so far, and Frank's listened to this. You can listen to them right here on her homepage. But because of RSX technology, you can listen to it on your podcast service if you subscribe to it on your podcast service. Now, I do all my podcast listening via my phone because it can play through my, if I connect it with Bluetooth to the dashboard of my my wheelchair van, and or I can listen to it on my smartphone or my tablet. Melinda says she enjoyed listening to her to Krista's new podcast on a flight on Friday. And welcome to your new home, Melinda. Okay, and the best neighbor in the whole wide world, Maria, who's also moving from the old neighborhood. Things aren't going to be like they used to be, hon. She's listened to 3 of the 5 podcasts. It's normally coming out with 1 a week, but they gave us several. Yes. And the reason I use a podcast service is that I wish I could show you on my phone, but I'll show you this from Podcast Addict. This is from the Google Play Store. Only I don't have mine is an iPhone, so I'm pulling this up. Basically, you can search for a podcast and then add it to your list of podcasts. And then when a new podcast episode is sent out, it shows up on your list. And you can watch the next one. And this is what it looks like. And it tells you how many days ago it was published, about how long it is. And you can usually click to see the show notes, which will have the links. Of course, I'm not clicking when I'm driving. I'm just listening instead of the horrible news on CNN of late. Yeah, a wonderful way to augment your genealogy education. The fun thing about Krista's podcast is that it talks about the stories and that side of family history. When we listen to her or view her Barefoot Genealogist episodes over on YouTube, she's telling us about new record sets that are available at Ancestry.com. And she may be talking about a research methodology that would be good. This is about the stories that Rick wanted us to attach to a photo using the software available in the Memory Station software. And so we follow along and listen to these. It's comic relief from the stressful side of life, but it also teaches us, gee, I know this story or that story, and I have a photo. I need to record that and share that with my grandchildren. How's our time? Oh, I've got 4 minutes. Is that what we're thinking? We're getting there. So anyway, I recommend this. It's the meatier side of family history research. Yeah. Google Podcast. That's another app that can bring in, yeah, I've heard it's going away, but it's being replaced, Hillary. I just don't remember the name of what the new thing is. Google gives us stuff and takes it away. I hear you. Is there anything else that I was going to talk about? Nope. We hit the end. It's all good. It's all good. Hey, folks, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I know that you've got lots of places that you can go on a Monday morning, but isn't this a great way to get together at the beginning of a week and kind of like jumpstart our research or be recommitted to sharing those stories of our ancestors? Okay, when we meet next week, we're going to have a special topic featuring Ursula. We're also going to talk about something that's been happening on WikiTree that involves Randy Seaver, and we're going to play Who's in My Line. Thank you so much for being with us. I'm Dear Myrtle, your not so retired friend in genealogy. Happy family tree climbing, everybody. That's a wrap.